This scam is simple. You slap synthetic skin grafts on people who don't need them and who are so terminally ill they're expected to die that day. And then you charge the government $900 million. There's a few bribes to pay along the way, there's manufacturing costs too, but if you don't care about treating dying people like objects, it's all gravy. This is the story of Alexandra Gehrke and Geoffrey King, allegedly failures of human beings, who I thank deeply for leaving up their social media. May God have mercy on your souls.
Cull does not offer rebates because our prices outpace the rebates of most major brands.
On the 27th of June 2024, the United States Justice Department announced a nationwide roundup of healthcare fraudsters. 193 defendants who stole a combined $1.6 billion in multiple different healthcare scams all over the country, and this is one of the cases they uncovered. So, who are Alexandra Gehrke and Geoffrey King? Media coverage on the couple has been limited so far, but as of the making of this video, their social media accounts and certain company websites are, strangely, still public, offering some insight into what sort of person would, allegedly, do these terrible things for $300 cat collars and $800 ice buckets, in addition to the case details in the indictment. Alexandra Lexi Gehrke is, as of 2024, a 38-year-old native of Phoenix, Arizona. Her mother Joan is an artist, and her father, Robert, was a lawyer. Shortly after graduating high school, she tried making a career as a professional portrait artist. According to her website, Alexandra's Art, she began showing her drawings in galleries in Los Angeles in 2005, and in 2008 she opened and curated her own art gallery called Pop Lock Gallery, and opened a second one that same year called Bang Gallery. On her website, Gehrke claims that her galleries played an impactful and lasting role in the gentrification of downtown Los Angeles. Yes, it really is amazing what daddy's money can do. She also listed herself as a freelance model and actress on multiple websites in 2008, where her profile describes her as a host of poker TV shows and extreme sports award shows, plus various print ads, an anti-smoking commercial, and more. She also notes being a member of the Screen Actors Guild. Anyway, it seems she was quite active in the LA art community, or wanted to be, showing her work in exhibitions and doing charity events. Here, she can be seen at a charity event where she donated some drawings of herself. How nice. Around 2012, she got rid of the galleries in LA and at some point moved back to Arizona, but continued with her art. She still has a website, now defunct, called Alexandra's Art, where she sold pencil and pastel portraits done from photographs, priced from $375 to $750 each. She also had a YouTube channel with only 2 videos on it, promoting a class called Mastermind on how to make these art things. In addition, she began listing herself as a commercial real estate broker with Marcus & Millichap in 2018. After about 15 years of doing her art business and, whatever, in March of 2019, Gehrke co-founded a medical device distribution company called Cull Medical Solutions Inc., with her business partner, an attorney named Elizabeth Ori, seen with Lexi in this bizarre video.
No, we do not. You can contact us via email, or alternately you can contact us via telephone. So on your screen below, you can find our contact info. Absolutely, yes.
Gehrke was the CEO of the company, and around this time began referring to herself as an entrepreneur and investment advisor. Cull Medical was registered to do business in Arizona, using 2 addresses, an office building 1 mile from Gehrke's house, and also a single-family home in Phoenix. But it was actually incorporated in Delaware, using the physical address of DelawareInc.com, like many companies, because of Delaware's corporate-friendly taxes, regulations, and legal system. Then, in 2021, Jeffrey King entered the picture. Born around 1975 in Jeffersonville, Indiana, after graduating high school in 1997, possibly at the age of 22, according to his own Facebook, I don't know, he joined the US Army, where he served as an infantryman until 2002. From there, until around 2013, he worked in various music shops and studied audio engineering in various places around Arizona and Texas. Alas, overall, he has a much smaller internet presence compared to Gehrke. Of course, I should say it's possible that both of them removed information from their social media accounts at some point, for reasons which will become clear later. Although they didn't remove all of it. So the way these two met is unclear, but the earliest information I can find about the two of them together is from a lawsuit that King filed against Gehrke regarding an incident in April of 2021, when he visited her house in Phoenix and was bitten by her cat. Yes, really. The idea that a judge had to read this makes me laugh, but it's a laugh of despair. But aren't they all? If I may read a little bit of it to you. Upon information and belief, and at all relevant times, defendant Gehrke was the owner of a certain cat or feline, hereinafter referred to as the cat. The cat had a recent medical or veterinary procedure done prior to plaintiff's visit to defendant's home. As a result of the procedure or other unknown cause, the cat was agitated, oversensitive, aggressive, and, or had, dangerous propensities abnormal to its class. Abnormal to its class. Defendant failed to warn plaintiff Jeffrey of the cat's dangerous propensities prior to the cat bite and attack. Again, imagine a judge reading this. Imagine the man-hours wasted. These people stole almost $1 billion. These people. There's got to be lead in the water or something, right? It goes on to say, without provocation, the cat attacked plaintiff, biting and or scratching him. As a result of the attack, plaintiff sustained painful and serious injuries including, but not limited to, sepsis, post-sepsis syndrome, permanent scarring and disfigurement, diminished life expectancy, healthcare expenses, loss of income and wages, pain and suffering, humiliation, loss of enjoyment of life, limitation in physical abilities, and mental and emotional suffering. And the weirdest part? This lawsuit was filed in 2023, 2 years after the incident, while Gehrke and King were dating, and not long, less than a year, before they got married. I can't tell what ultimately came of the lawsuit, but anyway, that happened in April of 2021. In September, Gehrke and King announced they were a couple. Then, in December, Gehrke started another medical device distribution company, with herself as the sole owner, called Apex Medical LLC, which was registered to one of the same addresses as Cull Medical. At some point, King began working for Gehrke as a sales representative at Apex Medical. The next year, in July 2022, Gehrke started another company called Apex Mobile Medical LLC, again registered to the same address as the others. But this time, she was co-owner with someone called Keith Allen Goss, who appears to be a doctor in Phoenix. But it was Gehrke who was CEO and in control of the company's operations. According to the Justice Department, this is around the time when Gehrke and King began conspiring together to commit fraud, which I'll explain in a moment. In September of 2022, Gehrke and King announced their engagement, and a few months later, In February of 2023, King started his own company called APX Mobile Medical LLC, also registered at the same address as the others, also co-owned by Keith Allen Goss. But a few months later, Goss submitted paperwork to the state removing King from company ownership. It's not clear why. Then, in December of 2023, Gehrke started yet another company, this time called Viking Medical Consultants LLC, which was solely owned and operated by her alone. So, we've got all these companies, many of which have very similar names. How did the fraud work? 3 of Gehrke and King's companies, Apex, Apex Mobile, and APX, were medical device distributors. They bought devices from third-party manufacturers, got medical professionals to use them on patients, then billed insurance companies for the cost of the device, including Medicare, the health program for the elderly and permanently disabled. One of the devices they sold and used in the fraud is called an amniotic allograft, a synthetic skin graft made from human placenta tissue. They're used, or they're meant to be used, for severe wounds. The tissue is placed over the wound, and over several weeks or months, a wound heals better, faster, and with less scarring compared to without the graft. Allografts are very, very expensive, costing up to $1,000 per square centimetre. So, for a large wound, a graft can cost tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. So here's what Gehrke and King did. First, they made arrangements with an allograft manufacturer, referred to in the indictment only as Company 1, to purchase allografts at inflated prices, which they then billed Medicare for. Then, Company 1 would send them illegal kickbacks in the form of rebates on the purchase price. The money would be sent via wire transfer and end up in Gehrke and King's personal bank accounts. In effect, they were double-dipping, charging Medicare for the full purchase price, then getting a cash kickback from the manufacturer. But that's just the beginning. King and Gehrke hired sales representatives without any medical training, as contractors via Gehrke's companies Apex and Viking. They personally instructed these contractors to go to various facilities with high populations of elderly people on Medicare, specifically retirement homes, assisted living facilities, and hospice facilities where people are preparing to die, because, as Gehrke stated in a sales meeting, that's where the most money is at. While there, the sales representatives would find people with any kind of wound, no matter how small it was, take pictures and measurements, and obtain copies of the victim's insurance information. Then, the representatives would pressure nurse practitioners in the facilities to order and apply medically unnecessary allografts from Gehrke and King's companies, without looking at their medical records or consulting their doctors. Gehrke and King personally instructed sales representatives to order only the largest, most expensive grafts, even if the wound was, in Gehrke's words, the size of my little fingernail. The key thing was to apply as many grafts as possible to people who didn't need them, so Gehrke and King could charge Medicare as much money as possible. Patients didn't need the grafts for a variety of reasons. Some had wounds that were infected and wouldn't respond to grafts. Some were wounds that had already received grafts. Some of the wounds were old and had already healed. And still, others were applied to people who were terminally ill in palliative care. Some of those people died within days of receiving their grafts. Others died on the same day. People on their literal deathbeds, their last hours on earth, their bodies being used by Gehrke and King for the sole purpose of enriching themselves. For doing this, sales representatives would be paid illegal kickbacks based on the number and size of the grafts, with some making hundreds of thousands of dollars in a single month. Gehrke and King also hired nurse practitioners on contract through Viking and sent them to facilities to order and apply the grafts to patients referred by their sales representatives. For each graft applied, the nurse practitioners were paid a flat rate of between $500 and $1,000. And remember, not only were King and Gehrke making a shitload of money by billing Medicare for these grafts, they also received kickbacks from the manufacturer, Company 1, which they attempted to conceal by creating phony invoices and moving money around various businesses and personal accounts. In just 1.5 years, Gehrke and King's companies fraudulently charged Medicare and other insurance programs a total of $900 million for just 500 patients, and $600 million was approved and paid to them, $1.2 million per patient. In addition, they received $330 million in illegal kickbacks from Company 1. Oh, and the other insurers they defrauded included commercial insurance companies and, get this, another genius move, CHAMP VA, the healthcare program for the Department of Veteran Affairs, and TRICARE, the health program for the US Department of Defense. And let me be clear, these grafts didn't physically hurt the people who received them, but the people who received them were deliberately chosen because they were vulnerable. I have to believe that at least some of the people who received them didn't understand what was happening on their deathbeds. What makes a person stoop to such a low? Exactly what you would think. An over-the-top, opulent lifestyle, a $300,000 Ferrari, a $230,000 Mercedes, a $140,000 Mercedes, a $6 million house, another house, another house, another house, over $520,000 in jewelry, gold bars, and gold coins. In February of 2024, they had an elaborate wedding at the Wrigley Mansion, where guests ate filet mignon, Chilean sea bass, and butler passed hors d'oeuvres, probably with a little bit of spit in them. And, as an aside, their wedding registry is still online. These are things they're asking guests to purchase as wedding gifts, but it shows you the kind of things they like to spend their money on, things that were worth behaving like a psychopath and taking advantage of vulnerable, elderly and dying people. Crystal candlesticks, bowls and glassware, a $750 crystal ice bucket, $500 pillows from Dolce & Gabbana and Louis Vuitton, because they're really good at making pillows, those pillows are better. An $1,800 glass vase, $300 gold silverware, a $640 towel, $300 Gucci cat collars and leashes. Shit. Just absolute shit. King also opened his own recording studio in May of 2024, called Scottsdale Music Company, with a studio full of expensive equipment and multiple employees. But all of that was about to change. On June the 18th, 2024, Gehrke and King were arrested at the Phoenix airport, attempting to board a flight to London. In their luggage, investigators found a book called Criminal Law Handbook, Know Your Rights, Survive the System. At their home, investigators found another book called How to Disappear, Erase Your Digital Footprint, Leave False Trails, and Vanish Without a Trace. Guess they didn't get round to reading that one. So these two squirts of piss are currently being charged with multiple counts of conspiracy, healthcare fraud, money laundering, and receipt of kickbacks. Their homes, cars, jewellery, gold bars, and all the other tat have been seized, along with $52 million from 13 different bank accounts. In addition, authorities also arrested a nurse practitioner contracted by Gehrke and King, named Bethany Jameson, for conspiracy to commit wire fraud. For her role in the scheme, betraying her patients and her profession, betraying her oath, she earned a total of $230,000 in bribes. Another contracted nurse practitioner, Rockall-Schmidt, was arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud. He was paid $220,000 in bribes for his despicable actions. These two people were nurses. The other business partners mentioned, Ori and Goss, have not been charged with anything. The indictment makes it pretty clear that Gehrke and King were the ones who came up with this scam and executed it. I'm not sure how involved they were, and I suppose neither is the DOJ. It is pretty clear, however, that the cost of the scam was huge, but they were not smart about it. Bank transfers between multiple accounts cannot conceal things from those who can read. We don't know how they were discovered. They were so sloppy with their finances, so brazen with their fraud, that any one of dozens of people could have tipped the authorities off. The sheer amount of money could have raised flags. I'd hope. And I have to wonder, what is the identity of Company 1, which paid Gehrke and King the illegal kickbacks disguised as rebates? The indictment describes it as an allograft manufacturer headquartered in Fort Worth, Texas. Perhaps the name has been withheld because of an ongoing investigation. The prosecutors certainly think that this company did something illegal as well. I'll just say, I did find an article about an allograft manufacturer in Texas who recently sued a YouTuber claiming to have internal company documents describing this exact practice, encouraging medical professionals to charge Medicare the full purchase price of these grafts, while pocketing a rebate later sent to them. I suppose I should stop there, but there's a link to that article in the description if you're interested. I certainly hope that the DOJ gets them, whoever they are. It looks to me as though Gehrke was born into wealth, and it also looks to me as though she was the instigator of all of this. I really say that because King comes across as a total moron. Gehrke comes across as someone who always wanted to make it, no matter what. And I wish I lived in a world where making it meant maturing as a human being and not just owning lots of stuff. Same as it ever was. It's all for shiny shit. Stuff you can't take with you, and stuff that's actually pretty fucking useless anyway. Look for the helpers. Look for the helpers, someone's mama once said, I think. I have to say it to myself so I don't go mad. Madder. Friday night, Giles. Get the mop. You can hear it. It's already started. See you next time. I guess. You see, like, when you do it like this, you get like a pulsation, which you don't get with a fan. Like, and obviously there's just an incredible smell of petrol, which reminds me of my youth. Oh god, yes. I can feel the brain cells melting away. This end goes into victim, and this end goes into brain, I think. Is that right? Or is it? Oh, hello!